Good evening. Welcome to Crisis Communication, Speech Communication 4345. You'll recall that last week we were looking at characteristics of teen violence, looking at some statistics as to how teen violence, juvenile crime is on the increase, and we spent some time looking at characteristics of gangs. I want you to have that information in your mind as we move into class this evening. If you recall from your syllabus, we were scheduled to have Lieutenant Malcolm Davis of the University of Houston Police Department with us. He's ill today. So Malcolm, if you're watching this from bed in your pajamas later on, we hope you're recovering and doing well, and we miss having you here tonight. We do have a whole room full of guests, though, and I'll be introducing them to you shortly on an individual basis. But they are from the Fort Bend Juvenile Probation Department. We've got a therapist, we've got a judge, we've got a boot camp instructor, we've got the chief and the assistant chief of the Fort Bend Juvenile Detention Center. And so as this evening and class progresses, we're going to be looking at the dimensions of the problem even more and seeing what's being done about those things. I do want us to take a few minutes, though, early on to reflect on what we might have asked Lieutenant Davis had he been here, some of the things that the campus police have informed us about in crisis communication classes in the past. And one of the questions or thoughts that often comes to mind has to do with how real or how realistic our expectations of the police are. We're a generation of television cop movies. All the crimes get solved within 30 minutes. They shoot bullets and blow out tires and stop racing cars on the freeway. Everybody's a sharpshooter and everything gets fixed in 30 minutes to an hour. And much of that is pretty unrealistic. We know from campus crime reports that the university is actually a relatively safe place compared to other parts of the city. Most of the crime that occurs on this campus is in the nature of theft. People leave unsecured properties, backpacks are taken, which is really catastrophic if your term paper that's due for me is in there and that's your only copy. But some of the unrealistic expectations have included things like the shooting out of tires on the freeway. It's my understanding that if you put a bullet in a tire, it goes in and it stays there. But the tire doesn't blow out and the criminal is suddenly apprehended. You could probably put a number of bullets into a tire and it would keep on going. Similarly, I've often wondered, well, when the bad guys are getting away, why don't they just shoot them in the foot so they can't run off? Well, the danger to people around them, you have to be a really sharp shooter in order to be able to hit a foot when it's running, these kinds of things. So in some instances, we've had unrealistic expectations. Students sometimes have unrealistic expectations about the recovery of stolen property. Go out there and catch those people that took whatever it is, and you really don't have a clue. One of the officers a previous semester said that someone gave them a coat hanger and said, "This is what they broke into my car." The car had been stolen and the coat hanger was, "Here, get the fingerprints off of this." There aren't any fingerprints on a coat hanger. So as a public, sometimes we're pretty naive about some of these things. There's a lot of crime out there to be dealt with. And our focus this evening, as I mentioned earlier, is on juvenile crime. A number of us are connected with juveniles in one way or another. We're either the parents of teenagers or some of you have younger siblings that are coming along that appear incorrigible at this point already. So whatever we can do to improve our communication skills, we want to start early on to be aware of those things, to the extent that our guests this evening know what kinds of things work, what kinds of things don't work so well. So I want to bring our first guest on. If you'll just pull your chair on over here, Dennis, and we'll make this a table for two. This is Dennis McAfee, and he is the Chief Juvenile Probation Officer out in Fort Bend. And we'd just like to start by telling us a little bit what that means. As a chief of the probation center, what do you do, and what's this all about?
Thanks for having me here.
Glad to have you.
Well, Fort Bend is adjacent to Harris County, and it's just southwest of here. So we've got a growing county. As a matter of fact,
now, a lot of you people out there are probably sitting out in Fort Bend right now in bed. The greater part of this class is in bed out there, so the ones who didn't want to drive in.
If you don't know, Fort Bend encompasses Missouri City, Stafford, Sugar Land, Rosenberg, Richmond, Needville, Beasley, some of the A-Leaf area, the Meadows, and it's grown quite a bit in the last 15 years. A lot of our increase in juvenile crime is basically because of our growth. We have had an increase above the growth, but a lot of it's been because of our population increase. We had about 70,000 people or so in 1980. The county's gone to about 250,000 now. Basically, the Juvenile Probation Department handles kids 10 through 16 years of age that have been referred to us by the local police departments, and fire marshals can also make referrals.
Is there a particular kind of crime that's prevalent?
Well, most of the crimes are still property crimes, but there's an increase in our county and across the nation and in the state in the violent crimes, and I think that's what everybody's concerned about. The system can still handle property crimes, and we can handle some violent crimes too, but I think that's what gets the news media's attention. And there has been an increase in that due to our population increase. But we get about, we got 1,843 referrals last year. A referral meaning the police brought us the body and the paperwork, or brought us the paperwork accusing a juvenile of committing a crime against the state.
Okay, and do the police bring this person directly to you? Are you the first stop, or what's the process
They
here?
can bring them straight to us. They have the choice when they first arrest to make the arrest and take the kid home, tell the legal guardian or parent what's going on, and they're being accused of this. Here they are, and I'm going to send the paperwork to juvenile probation. Or they can also bring the kid straight to the detention center. We have a 56-bed detention center also, and they can bring them there, and they can bring them to our intake division, which I believe we're going to be looking at shortly here. And that's a whole different process that we go through to determine a lot of things. What's going on, what's the kid accused of. There's 4 or 5 reasons in Title III of the Texas Family Code, which is what we go by, that allows us to detain a kid and not let them return home. We've got 48 hours to decide that. Within 48 hours, if we hold them, then we take them before a judge to hold them for 10 days after that, and every 10 days after that, and they're represented by an attorney.
Good. Any questions out there yet? We're kind of letting you all warm up to this topic.
Yeah, this just, yes ma'am.
The detention center, is there a boys detention center and girls one? I mean, I can't really find.
The detention center itself, and I hope the tape shows how it divides, is 56 beds. There's a girls unit that's 12 beds. And then there's another section before you get to that unit, when you first come in, that's got 2 holding cells, if you can call them that, for the first 48 hours for girls. Then there's 6 holding cells for boys, and then there are 2 boys units that are 18 beds each. But we've got boys and girls. Obviously, from the count that I just described, there are less girls that come into the system than boys. But that's a growing increase also. Okay.
Well, maybe what we should do is look at the tape first, because there's a real effort being made in Fort Bend to deal with the problems, to open communication lines and so forth. So, Bob, if you've got the tape back there, let's take a look at it next, and then we'll interview the people who are responsible for working there. What do you want to say?
Steve Macklin, Assistant Chief here for Juvenile Probation Services for Fort Bend County. This right here is our juvenile probation building and detention facility for Fort Bend. What we'd like to show you today is a scenario of an intake of what a child will see when a child gets processed through the detention center of Fort Bend County. We'd like you as a camera to be that child entering our building, and we'll show you the actual process of how that will happen. So are we ready to get started? This vehicle you see coming closer to the gate here is the main entrance to our detention facility. As you see, as he drives up, there's a communication line that is first used to actually open the gate here and to actually have the main unit process the gate. As you see, as he comes into the sally port here, the child is brought into a secure area. Once this area is secured and the officer transporting the child is in the sally port, the gate will be automatically closed behind you.
Go ahead and close it. Both sides, Corey.
The sally port gate closes down behind the juvenile that will be in a secure facility.
Anthony here, he's a 16-year-old charged with aggravated robbery.
Okay, you want to go ahead and bring him on in? I'll need for you to put him up against the wall and just pat him down.
Okay. Come on, Anthony. Anthony, face the wall right here, and this is where we'll search you. You need to put your hands as high as you can on the wall here, and we're going to go ahead and pat you down, make sure you don't have any weapons or any contraband on you, and after that I need for you to take your shoes and socks off, okay? All right, stand there at the wall. I'm going to go ahead and pat you down. Okay?
Okay, Anthony, you're going to have to go in here and sit for a few minutes. I'm going to need to talk to the police officer. Information from him, so he'll just go in here and have a seat, and we'll be with you in a few minutes. Juvenile detention report, giving us information in regards to the offense and what took place. I need enough probable cause in that report to lead me to believe that the child committed the alleged offense. Okay? Thank you.
All right.
Okay, officer, looks like we've got enough probable cause here. I see that he held up a store over in Fresno, had a handgun. We got witnesses and witnesses that identified him and ID him as being the person that held the store up. That's all the information I need at this point. I'll take it from here.
I'm free to go?
Yes, sir, you're free to go.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
What's up? Been all about African gal.
Come on in and have a seat and get some information from you. Okay. First of all, it's being alleged that you're accused of a felony offense, an aggravated robbery, and a serious felony offense. But at this time, I need to gather some information from you about your parents and so forth, so let's get started with that.
Okay.
What is your name, sir?
Anthony Moore.
Okay. And where do you live?
I live at 123 Mockingbird Lane.
Okay. And who do you live with?
I live with my mama, man.
Your mother? What's her name?
Miss Moore.
Miss Moore? Okay, how old are you?
I'm 16.
16. Your date of birth?
19 of 70. So
19 of what?
76.
And what school do you attend, sir?
I attend A-Leaf High School.
A-Leaf. What grade are you in?
I'm in the 9th grade.
Are you regular in attendance?
What you mean regular?
Have you been going regular? That's what I mean.
I go.
Okay. When's the last day you attended? Were you there yesterday?
Yeah, I was there yesterday.
Okay. What is your religion?
I'm Catholic.
Catholic? And the reason I asked that question is because we have church services that go on here, and they're non-denominational. So, you know, just for our knowledge.
Okay.
Do you attend church regularly, sir?
Yeah, I try to.
And are you employed?
No, I had a job one time over at Burger King, but that was last year.
Okay. So you were working at Burger King, but you're not working there anymore, right?
Right.
So you're not employed.
No, not right now.
Okay. How tall are you, sir?
I'm 5'10".
Okay. And how much do you weigh?
160 pounds.
And color hair?
Black.
Color eyes?
Black.
And your mother's name? What's her first name?
Ruby Moore.
Ruby Moore. And her home phone number?
555-2121.
And her address, is that the same as yours on 123 Mockingbird Lane?
That's right. That's where we live.
And where is that, in Houston or where?
Well, kind of. A-Leaf, I think you would say it is.
A-Leaf?
Yeah. I go to A-Leaf High School, so I guess it's A-Leaf.
And what's the zip code?
77111.
And where is your mother, Ruby Moore, employed?
She don't work no more.
So she's unemployed.
Yeah.
So is she home now? Do you know?
I don't know. She might be there. I don't know. Can I call her? Can I call her? When I can't see her.
Well, you're not allowed any phone calls. I'll be contacting your parent in here in a few minutes and advising you've been brought here to detention and the reason that you've been brought here to our facility.
When am I gonna get to go home?
Well, on this offense, legally, I can hold you in detention 48 hours, which is 2 working days. In your case, since you've been brought in on a Thursday, when a child is brought to us on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, they're entitled to a detention hearing no later than Monday. And a detention hearing is a hearing where you go before the judge, and the judge will decide if you're going to stay here any longer or if he's going to release you to your parents.
Well, how much is my bail? Can my mother come up here and pay bail and get me out of here today?
There's no bail in juveniles. What will happen is one of my officers or myself will be looking into doing an investigation about any prior referrals you've had to this department. Have you been here before?
No, sir. This is my first time. I ain't never been in no trouble.
Okay, we're going to also be interviewing your parents and find out, how your behavior is at home, as well as how your behavior is at school.
Yeah, my mama gonna tell you I've been good. I don't know why they picked me up.
Okay, but we'll get into that. Let me finish getting the rest of this information, and we'll talk a little bit more. Okay, and your father's name?
I ain't got no father.
You don't have a father? Is he deceased, or where is he?
Well, I don't know. My mama, I don't know.
Do you know his name?
No.
Okay. If for some reason I can't get a hold of Ruby Moore, which is your mother, is there someone else I can contact? An aunt, an uncle, grandmother, something?
My grandmother.
What's her name?
Helen James.
And her address?
She lived down the street from me. I think it's 132 Mockingbird Lane.
Okay. That's an A-Leaf?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And her phone numbers?
555-2132.
Okay. Let me just ask you some questions in regards to your health, okay? Are you sick?
Nah, I had a headache this morning.
Okay, but you're not sick at this time, right?
Nah, I feel all right now.
Are you injured?
I caught when the cops was chasing me a while ago, I kind of sprained my knee here, but I'm all right.
But is it bothering you, so you're injured at this time?
Nah, it's okay.
Because I've got a nurse here that can look at it.
Nah, it's all right. I don't need to see no nurse.
Okay, well, I'm still going to document that you said that your knee is bothering you, okay?
Okay.
Do you take medication?
Nah.
Have you taken any drugs or alcohol during the past 2 days? And before you answer that, I want to explain something. This is just to help us in observing you while you're here. Because if you've been on any drugs or anything, you need to let us know now. It's not, you're not going to get in further trouble. We just need to know that information.
No, man, I don't do no drugs. I don't do that stuff.
Is there anything you need?
I need to go home.
Okay, but is there anything else that you need at this time?
No.
You know, as far as, you know, shelter, food, or anything like that?
No, I just want to go home.
Do you have any allergies or allergic reactions to anything?
No. When can I call my mama, man?
I'm going to call her here in a few minutes. Just got to finish up a couple more things here, and I'll be calling your mother.
Okay, I'll be patient.
Okay.
We go get cell one. All in the end.
At this time, I do want to advise you that I will be contacting your mother, and legally there's 5 reasons that I can detain you in detention. 1, if you're likely to abscond, be removed from the jurisdiction of the court. In other words, if I feel that if you're released today, you're going to run away,
No, I
you
ain't
can
gonna
help
run
me
away.
detain.
I promise you, I ain't gonna run away.
Okay, another reason, if there's not suitable supervision being provided by parent, guardian, custodian, or other person. A 3rd reason, if there's no one able to return you back to court. A 4th reason, if you are being accused of committing a felony offense, it may be dangerous to yourself or others if released. And right now, you are being charged with an aggravated robbery, where, you know, it's my understanding from the information I have at this time that there was a weapon involved and there are witnesses that saw you, so you are being accused of a felony offense, and you may be a danger to yourself or others if released at this point. Have you ever been on probation?
No, sir, not at all. Not me. I haven't
Okay.
been nobody's probation.
Because that's another reason I can detain you. If you were on probation at this time and you're being accused of another offense, you can be detained. Okay, but right now what I'm holding you on is suitable supervision, care, protection for you is not being provided by parent, guardian, custodian person at this time, and that you are being accused of committing a felony offense and may be dangerous to yourself or others if released. That's what I'm initially holding you at this point. Okay, and what we'll be doing is investigating, getting some more information from police officers about the offense. We'll be interviewing your parents and find out some information about supervision in the house, if they're able to supervise you there, if they're willing to bring you back to court. But that's going to be, you know, once I get in touch with them, we set up some interviews. But you will be detained at this time.
Okay, if you say so.
All right. Thank you, and you're going to be strip search and shower, and I'll be contacting your parents.
No, okay. I need to talk to my mama, though.
Okay, I'll be talking to your mother. The only time visitation here in detention, we have visitation if you happen to stay over the weekend. We have visitation Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7 to 9. Okay? The only time you're allowed to use the telephone is if your mother doesn't show up for visitation. But I will be contacting her and advising her visitation. If I can't get a hold of your parent by telephone, then what I'll be doing is contacting the police department and seeing if they can have an officer drive by your house until we can make contact with your parents. Because by law, we do have to notify the legal guardian that you are here. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Here's your Anthony. Here's your towels and blankets and your toiletries. I need you to come in here and strip down for me and take a shower. Come this way. You can be assigned to holding cell 1. We'll be checking on you later on. Lunchtime is at 5 o'clock. And the walls and everything is just freshly painted. Any damage that's done, you will be responsible for.
He's been putting in holding cell number 1. At this point in time, he can be held here up to 48 hours before he has to go before the court for a detention hearing, like Mr. Ramirez described in the intake process. At this time, we'd like to move on to the intake unit and show you exactly where the interview will be conducted between the intake officer and the parents to substantiate what type of a child Anthony has been in the past. We'll be interviewing them to discover such things as his previous history, if he's been running away before, has any other criminal acts, the type of supervision being provided, the type of child he is at school, the education problems that he may or may not have, And so we'll go on to the intake.
I need for you to come with me. If you'll just follow me over to my office, please. Right this way, Anthony. Right this way. This way over to my office.
I did it, I did.
Come on in and have a seat. Okay. Anthony, since we met this morning, I've had an opportunity to find out some things about you. Okay? It's 4 o'clock this afternoon. Contacted your parents, talked to your mother, had her come down here. She was here about 1 o'clock this afternoon. I've talked to her. She's been telling me she's having a lot of problems with you. You've been running around with gangs, sneaking out at night. She says she can't supervise you at home. Now you're being charged with an aggravated robbery. There was a weapon involved. You held up a store. Got witnesses that saw you, so I've got a good case. You know, it's a serious offense, and your mother can't supervise you at home. So at this time, you will be detained, and you'll be staying in detention. You'll be in detention. Today's Thursday, so like I informed you earlier, since when a child is brought to detention on Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, he's entitled to a detention hearing Monday. So you'll be here until Monday. Monday morning or Monday afternoon is when our juvenile judge usually hears us in the county courts. So Monday morning we will be taking you for a detention hearing, which is a hearing where the judge will decide if you will be released or you will stay in detention for 10 more days. And I also want to advise you that at that hearing, you will have a right to an attorney. If you can't afford an attorney, and your parents have already told me they can't afford an attorney, at this point I've given them some paperwork to see if the court will appoint them an attorney, and they're over at the judge's office now trying to see if the judge will appoint an attorney to represent them, because you will need an attorney to represent you in court. I want to tell you a little bit about the hearing. At the hearing, your parents will be present, your attorney will be there, and I'll be there as a probation officer and giving testimony as to the findings in regards to your case. I've already done my investigation, and I'll be getting my paperwork ready for Monday. But Monday, usually the judge hears us about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so you can expect to have a hearing Monday at 3 o'clock. And then the judge will decide if he's going to release you or keep you in detention for 10 more days. In the meantime, visitation again is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Today's not visitation day, but tomorrow your parents can come visit with you from 7 to 9 for 15 minutes. Do you have any questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions, then we're going to put you back in your cell. And I'll be getting with you probably Monday morning to get some more information from you prior to going.
Good morning, and Anthony is coming in here for his hearing. This is our courtroom here at the detention facility that will be the place for the conducting of the hearing. In this courtroom, there will be a judge here sitting on the bench. At this table, there's the district attorney's office and the probation officer that will be testifying in the case against him at the detention hearing. At this table, there will be the child's attorney and the child's parent or guardian that represents them. Again, at this hearing, evidence will be presented, as you already heard, in regards to the aggravated robbery. The evidence will be presented by the district attorney and the probation officer here, presented to the court. The judge will have to make a decision based upon all the evidence presented to him, whether or not Anthony needs to remain with us here in detention, or whether there's some suitable place other than detention that he could be placed at, such as back home, some residential facility, hospital, or some other program. At this time, though, on Monday when we had this hearing, there was enough evidence. The judge found that he didn't warrant detention. He was detained for 10 days. So now we'd like to take you back to the area that he will be detained at and put back in our main units at the detention facility.
Anthony, since you've been detained for the next 10 days, now you'll no longer be in the holding cell by yourself. We're going to put you on the unit with the other kids. So if you'll just follow me, we're going down to the unit. You'll be in Unit B. Right this way, Anthony. This is the unit where you'll be staying, but before I place you in one of these cells, the other kids are in school right now, and I'm going to explain a little bit about school to you just in a few minutes. But why don't you come over here and have a seat? You'll just have a seat there. Anthony, here you go. Okay, Anthony, as you know, the judge has detained you for the next 10 days, okay? In the meantime, what I'm going to be doing is contacting your school, A-League school where you were attending, and getting you enrolled here in our school program. That means you won't be in the cell the whole time you're here. We start school at 9 o'clock, and they're there, you know, they usually keep you to about 3:30, 4 o'clock. We have teachers from the Arkansas Independent School District. It's a special sites program that we have here, so you will be enrolled in school while you're here. Most of your time, again, from 8:30, I'm sorry. They start at 8:30 to about 4 o'clock. You will be in school. Okay. After that, you'll be brought back over to the unit, and they have programming here. Sometimes you'll get a chance to watch a little TV before turning in. But for the next 10 days, this will be your assigned unit. And again, your parents can visit with you on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7 to 9 for 15 minutes. Your court date, the judge did set a court date. You were detained for 10 days. Your court date, when you will appear on the charges, that aggravated robbery charges. Today we just had a hearing where the judge decided if he was going to release you or keep you in detention. And he decided to go ahead and detain you for the next 10 days. And the reason he detained you is because you are being accused of a felony offense and you may be a danger to yourself or others if released. And he didn't feel that your parents could provide you with suitable supervision at this time. So you will be here for the next 10 days. Every 10 days until April the 5th, you will be entitled to a detention hearing, which is a hearing where the judge again will decide if he's going to release you to your parents or if he's going to keep you in detention pending your court date of April 5th of 1985. But a child, when he is detained, every 10 days is entitled to a detention hearing where again the judge will reevaluate his case and determine whether or not the child will be released. You and your attorney can waive the right to that hearing by signing a piece of paper called a waiver of detention. If you and your attorney sign the waiver, that means you agree to stay in detention. Because most of the time the attorney and the child will waive that right to that hearing unless there have been some changes in the home. In other words, is there going to be more supervision? Is there someone else staying at your house that can assist in the supervision? Or if maybe we can figure out a plan, you know, after we work with your attorney in the DA's office, if everybody's in agreement to you being, if you had some kind of drug problem, maybe going into a drug rehab where it's going to be lockup. You know, if we found a program for you where you could be placed pending your court date, that's another option the judge has. But at this point, he has detained you for the next 10 days. You will be enrolled in school. You'll be entitled to visitation. You're being charged with a serious offense. So you're probably going to be here till April 5th, you know, to your court date. So I'm just letting you know. I'm just being realistic about it. Okay? Do you have any questions, Anthony? At this time, Anthony, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
You know, I know you're upset, but, you know, again, you know, you got yourself in this situation. And when people start making bad decisions, other people start deciding what's best for them. And at this time, the judge has decided it's best for you to stay locked up for the next 10 days. And like I said, on that serious a charge, you're probably going to be here till April 5th.
Okay, if I have to, I guess I'll do it.
Okay, I also
Where am I going to live now? Which one of these cells I'm going to be in?
You're going to be here in B2, cell B2. Okay? I also want to advise you while you're in detention, the detention staff will be monitoring your behavior and giving us progress reports on how you're doing. And if we have to have detention hearings and we get some negative reports, they are going to be presented to the court. And that also, the judge will take that into consideration when you do appear in court on your offense, and him deciding whether or not he's going to put you on probation or what is he going to do with you at this point. You know, the judge has several options. When we do go to court on April the 5th of 1995, he can put you on probation at home with your parents. Well, first of all, let me back up a little bit. First, he has to find you true or not true to the offense. Right now, it's just being alleged. And your attorney will be talking to you about the offense and what your rights are in regards to either having a trial before the judge or a jury trial. Right now, you know, the court date has been set, and your attorney will be talking to the judge. At this point, you know, until you go to court, you'll probably be detained, and like I told you before, until April 5th of 1995.
You mean I got to stay here until April, huh?
More likely, yeah. Not unless, like I informed you, you're entitled to a detention hearing every 10 days. So after these 10 days, if your parents, if there's going to be some changes in the home, maybe someone else staying there or is going to assist in the supervision, then your attorney and you will probably want to hear, and then we'll go before the judge, and the judge can decide whether or not he's going to detain you for 10 more days or he's going to release you, pending that April 5th date of 1995. But you're being charged with an aggravated robbery, which is a very serious offense. You know, if an adult committed an offense like this, they could spend some jail time and possibly go to the penitentiary. And I don't think the DA is going to want you out on the streets. You know, you're talking about, you know, a gun being involved and, you know, someone being held up at gunpoint, and we've got witnesses. So I think they've got a pretty good case, but that'll be up, you know, taken up at a later time. Okay?
Okay.
So we're going to put you in your cell.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, let's get in your cell here.
Three classroom areas in our facility. As you see, they do have access to computers and computer programs. This is called our computer lab room for our juvenile offenders here. When a child does come to our detention facility and they're here beyond 48 hours and up to 5 days, they're enrolled in the Lamar Consolidated Special Site School Program here. So while they do stay in detention here in Fort Bend County, they do get full credit, school credit, for their schoolwork while they're here. This credit also transfers back wherever the child goes once they are released from detention, back to their home-based school or back to some other program or placement. That credit goes along with them, so there is no gap in credits. So we're very high on education in our probation department here. We're very pleased to have Lamar Consolidated, have 2 full-time teachers and a teacher's aide that does the tutoring for these children here in detention. And we're very pleased to have these rooms and facilities. Now I'd like to take you to our area where we'll go ahead and show you where the families are allowed to visit the juvenile and other family members. Hallway is our visitation rooms that we previously discussed. This is visitation 1, 2, and 3. I'd like to take you down here and show you just one of the little areas that we have for families and the children to visit with their parents. We also use these areas for the family's attorney, the child's attorney, to visit with the child. Our visitation policy is only to allow the parents and legal guardian to visit with the child while they're here in detention. Now I'd like to take you back to our recreational area and show you our gymnasium and basketball court outside. The door goes out to our recreation facility. If you come with me, we'll show you our basketball court. As you see, it's a nice gymnasium area, but if you also look around, it's very secure. The barbed wire around the tops of the fence and also all the poles makes it extremely secure. The children are also brought out here for recreation at least an hour a day, sometimes longer over the weekends when staff permits. We keep a close staff to student juvenile ratio to make sure there are no escapes. Concluded showing you the process of an intake and being a child being charged with a serious offense. We'd like to tell you what happened in that hearing on April 5th. Anthony was charged with that aggravated robbery. The judge found him that he was a child who engaged in delinquent conduct in the first part of the hearing. He found those facts to be true. At the second part of that hearing is called, in a juvenile hearing, is called the disposition phase, which, comparable to the adult phase, is the sentencing phase. At that phase, the judge found that because the facts of the case were so serious, there was a gun involved and there was public safety involved, that he was committed to the Texas Youth Commission. The Texas Youth Commission is sort of like the little penitentiary for juveniles compared to the prison system for adults. And in TYC, because of the aggravated nature of the offense, that entails that the child is going to have to stay there for at least 1 year minimum period of time in one of their TYC secure facilities. So most likely that child will go up to one of the state school systems in the TYC facility, which are secure state schools with fences around them, and have to be maintained in that for at least a 1-year period. That's, again, based upon the child's behavior. And the Texas Youth Commission does have jurisdiction over that juvenile until the age of 21, although that is beyond, that goes into the adult phase. They do have legal jurisdiction by legislation till 21, so if he went up there and presented, again, a bad attitude, they could technically keep that child till 21, or since Anthony was 16 and he's staying there a year, after he turns 17, legally under the Texas state law, he would be an adult, and if he committed any further crimes, even in TYC custody, he could be tried and passed on to the adult system. So hopefully Anthony will learn from this experience, and by being up there, he'll learn to not go out and to bother and to harm people in the community anymore. At this time, I'd like to reintroduce myself. I'm Steve Macko, the Assistant Chief for Fort Benning Juvenile Probation Department. I've been here approximately 14 years with the department. I'd like to reintroduce some of our actors here.
My name is Nelson Morgan. I'm actually the detention superintendent here, and I have 21 years experience working with juveniles.
And my name is Tony Ramirez. I'm the intake supervisor, and I have 10 years experience working with juveniles. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being a part of this program, and I hope this has been enlightening to you and to the general public to get an inside view of what happens in a juvenile probation department and a juvenile detention facility.
Okay, thank you very much. Great tape. And our camera person, who was the arrestee, is our own Jackie Blankenship out of this class. We appreciate her camera efforts and calling the tape to our attention. Well, if you've noticed, I've got a new guest up here. This is the judge. This is Judge Larry Walkenbach. Is that how you pronounce it?
That's fine.
Close enough, okay. And he is a crucial part of this process. As you heard on the tape, those hearings occur, and this is the judge. What do you do, Judge?
Well, I'm having trouble. I know how the athletes feel in the Astrodome. You can see our monitor up here.
Well,
so
we'll just look back there at Ginger.
Ignore that.
That's right, look at Ginger.
One of the matters that what we basically saw on television was what happens to the juvenile after the juvenile is picked up by the police and prior to the time the court has an opportunity to conduct the trial and make the final decision on what to do with the child. I was looking at a report today, and we have had juveniles, or we have a juvenile currently that's been in the detention center 140 days. That child's waiting for a certification hearing for the court to decide whether the child should be tried as an adult. But so that they can be there a short time, maybe a couple of days, or they may be there 3 or 4 months. Once the child gets from this stage to the trial, the court has several options in which to and how to handle the child, as was explained on the tape. The judge, by public policy set by the legislature, as it currently sets, looks at what is in the best interest of the child, and rehabilitation of the child is the first concern of the court, and then there's a series of 5 or 6 other public policies, from the protection of the public to some other areas. But the court is now charged with rehabilitation of the child as the first public policy in handling this juvenile when it comes into the court system. However, the Texas legislature is turning that around to the point of the protection of the public is going to be, if the family code is changed, will be the public policy number one concern of the court. I can talk forever, or I can answer some questions.
Well, let's see if there are some questions. Okay, Karen?
Yes, ma'am.
Are the rules of evidence and the kind of procedures, I mean, we've all watched, in addition to cop shows, we've also Should I be on the
Yeah,
thing?
you
Yeah,
gotta
sure.
hold the
Okay.
microphone down.
Just as we watch all the police shows on TV, we've all seen millions of court cases and law
Very
lawyer
nice
shows and
move.
everything else. Don't see too many cases of juvenile crime on LA Law or anything. But what I'm curious about is we've gained some familiarity now with O.J. Simpson and everything on the technicalities in terms of evidence and everything else. Are all those rules still applicable in juvenile court?
I doubt if you will see a trial like we have on television. However, and you brought up the O.J. Simpson trial, I had a jury trial. It was an adult misdemeanor trial a month or so ago, and I got a letter back from a juror that stated that from watching the O.J. Simpson trial how disenchanted this individual had become with our judicial system. And after sitting on a trial, he wrote a letter back and said that he was glad to see that the judicial system, at least in Texas, is not as broken as it appears to be in California. But don't let what's happening in the O.J. Simpson trial taint your feelings towards the judicial system, because I'm a little prejudiced, but I don't believe the judicial system is as broken as it appears in California. Getting back to your question, a juvenile matter in Texas is considered a civil matter, and it's controlled by the rules of civil procedure and the rules of civil evidence. And it's as any other trial is tried in a court of law, the same rules would apply in a juvenile proceeding as it would pertain in any other civil proceeding before my court. However, there's certain constitutional rights, both the state and the federal constitutional rights that a juvenile has that supersede the procedures, and these rights also have to be protected. And the burden in the Texas law is placed upon the judge to make sure these rights are protected. And it's one of the antiquated parts of our juvenile code that I hope the legislature changes. But the rules of civil procedure and the rules of civil evidence basically control the trial, and not the rules of criminal procedure and the criminal evidence. Now, that's going to be changed also if the new legislature comes about.
Ginger?
Do you, as a judge, I don't know if you have children or not, but do you give words of advice to juveniles? Do you lecture them, state your opinion, take advantage of the opportunity to say, gosh, perhaps you should make better choices in the future, or?
You know, as a judge, I'm setting a very good position to talk to kids because they really can't talk back to them.
Should we all get gavels?
And also, I feel it's also as important, if not more important, to talk to the parents. Over the years, as I've been dealing with these kids, I've told parents on occasion I'm locking up the wrong member of the family. And I really believe that in some instances. The parents have been either through neglect or just whatever, have led to the problems of the child. And I had a mother one time that had a birthday party in a local bar and took her 12 or 14-year-old son to the bar, and everybody got drunk, and then the son got upset with the mother's boyfriend and shot him in the bar. And of course the son was the one who was in trouble, but I felt that the mother was as culpable, if not more so, than the child. But I take the opportunity once the child has went through, there's two trials really in a juvenile proceeding. The first trial is to decide whether the child's guilty or not guilty of the offense. And that's called the adjudication hearing. And the court finds that the allegations against the child are true or not true. If the allegations are found not to be true, the child is immediately released. If the allegations are found to be true, then the court starts a second trial. The first trial can either be before the judge or before a jury in the determination of guilt or the adjudication hearing. The second trial, or the disposition hearing, is solely before the judge, and that's when the judge decides what's going to happen to the child. And as the film you just saw stated, the child in that instance was sent to the reform school or the Texas Youth Commission, but the child could be put on probation, or the child could be and returned to the home. The child could be put on probation and placed in a foster home or in a hospital, in a boot camp that you're going to hear about in a few minutes. The child could be put in a placement away from the home, a wilderness camp or a boys' home. But once once I have decided what placement I'm going to place the child or what disposition I'm going to do, and once all the trial's over, is when I have my couple minutes with the parents and the child. And what I usually do is talk to the child and communicate with them and let him know that everybody in the room is his friend or her friend, that everybody's there to help the child, but if the only person there that can really make a difference is the child and himself, because if the child doesn't want help, we really can't force the program other than protect the public. So the success of the program is going to be on the child. And then I talk to the mother just a moment, or the father, but generally it's just the mother. Most generally the father is nowhere to be found, and the kids that I see. Then once all of my little talk to the child and the child's parents are over, then I make the child apologize to the mother and the father, that the father's there, and the grandparents, and make them apologize and let them know that that they have cleaned up their act. They're going to clean up their act and get their life straightened out. And one of the when I do that, one of the things I watch for is if there's any emotion in the child and the child's parents. And if I see a mother start crying and I see the child start crying, I feel maybe the system's made an impact on that child. But when you see a child just stand there cold and stone sober and just go through the litany, well then I know the system's got a pretty long and rugged road before they reach that child, if they ever do. Ms. Blankenship, you had your hand up.
I wanted to know if you generally see the same children coming back, and at what point do you decide to send them to a reform school or foster parents? Do you have to wait till you've seen them like 2 or 3 times, or is that happen on the first time on some of the students, the juveniles?
The decision a lot is based upon the seriousness of the offense the child's been involved in an aggravated robbery where a weapon's involved. That child will be probably going to a placement at the least, in TYC probably, because we don't have any programs that are designed to take care of the child that has been involved in an aggravated crime. But if the child is less than an aggravated crime, then we go through a series of steps, and Mr. McAfee and Mr. Macco and the probation department review the child, and there's a series of programs the child's given an opportunity to complete, and if they do not complete them and they're kicked out of the programs, they're brought back to the court, and we look at another one. And there's finally a point we run out of programs, and TYC is the last resort. But the numbers of successes or non-successes, we don't give up on the kids very easily in Fort Bend County. And our recidivism rate for the ones that's on probation, at least Mr. Macco keeps telling me, is one of the best in the state. And if you've seen our detention facility, I believe it's one of the best in the state too. We're proud of our detention facility and our probation department and our probation officers. And it's the Commissioner's Court of the county did the county proud for what they have done for the juvenile crime in our county. Yes, ma'am.
Melanie.
Yes, you were saying earlier about sometimes you feel like you're punishing the wrong member of the family, the parents are really responsible for what happens. Is there anything you can do to maybe to watch the parents, or I don't know, help them?
Well, we have programs if the child's placed on probation. As a condition of probation, we can order the parents to go to counseling and to either see, we're going to have a counselor here in just a moment some of these parents get to see. We order the parents into counseling programs. We order the parents to participate in programs with their child. we're limited really on what we can do with the parents, but we do have programs. If we send the child to the reform school, then there's very little we can do with the parents. Yes, ma'am.
Well, and of course, the question that sort of makes me wonder in my mind is, if, okay, you've got a problem, you decided the parents are part of the problem and you want to get them into counseling. Okay, what if a parent decides not to cooperate, decides not to show up? In a sense, what happens is, doesn't it sound like the only person you have really to kind of only punishment in a sense happens to the kid, because the kid now gets out of, isn't in that program because his parents aren't cooperating?
It's not quite true.
Okay.
I can think of a couple instances where parents refused to cooperate with the probation department and against my orders. The child was doing what the child was supposed to do. The parents just refused to do it. And a motion for contempt of court was filed, and the parents spent a few to several days in the county jail once the hearing was over. And I don't buy my food at the grocery store that parent works at anymore, but but I think the parent got the message, and the court has the power of contempt, and if they did not follow the court's orders, and that has to be handled very jealously, but on the right circumstance, it's applied.
Yes.
Is it fair to assume that the allegations against the juvenile would have to be a misdemeanor or a felony for them to go to the juvenile detention center, or are there some lesser type things that they might do?
The main thrust of the kids in juvenile in the detention center are a misdemeanor, probably of a Class A, of assault of some sort through a felony. But we have what is called a child in need of supervision. And that child is a child that's not committed any criminal offense, but has been truant from school, is on a runaway status from home. Some of the traffic offenses are child in need of supervision type cases. Those kids sometimes end up in our detention center, and those kids can be some of the most frustrating kids we deal with. Yes.
How old is the youngest one that you've ever had in your court?
10. I have him right now.
So what happens to anybody under 10?
Goes to the Child Protective Services, through the Child Protective Service program, and they look for foster homes and other programs for the child. They may look at, if the child is really active, they may look at hospitalization or programs like that for the child. But until the child reaches 10, the child's not brought into through the juvenile process. He may be in the mental health process, or he may be in the Child Protective Services process.
How do you get at truth?
Get at truth?
Yeah. Don't they just sometimes stand there and lie through their teeth and say, oh, yeah, Judge, I'll be good. I mean, the guy on the tape, oh, yeah, I'm not going to get in any more trouble.
I think
you just develop a gut instinct for this?
Gut instinct, and that's going back to when I make the child apologize to his mother or father and go through that scenario with them. If the child shows a lot of emotion, I feel that he may not have been exactly truthful with everyone, but we've made an impression. I'm not, I've raised, someone asked me, I've got one child of mine and 3 stepchildren, so I know exactly, if you do not ask the child the exact question, you're not going to get the right answer. And sometime when I've been on the bench, had a long day and start asking some questions, and I get the juvenile runaround, I get a little short with the kids, but the system seems to, when you throw everything up, the truth comes out.
So you're looking at outside evidence and testimony as well as the nonverbal cues from the child.
The nonverbal cues from the child, I pay a lot more attention to than what they tell me.
Karen?
Well, out of curiosity, because you'd said, constitutional rights come into it, and I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, jury trial's one of those. And I'm just listening to the sound of it. It sounds like that's, not that I'm saying I'd want it to be, but I'm just curious, that doesn't sound like that's an option in the juvenile system?
Jury trials are an option. I'm sorry if I, when I talked about the adjudication hearing, where you're finding the child is guilty or not, that can either be before the judge or before a jury.
Now, of course, it'd have to be adults then, so as his peers?
Oh, so you have to be 18 years or older to be on the jury panel.
Jackie, did you have a question?
Well, I was wondering, I'm curious about this 10-year-old. When
So she wants to know someone she knows.
No. Too young. Did he have his mother and father in the courtroom with him, or was he part of a gang? Or?
This is and I'm going to try to, hopefully I can remember the facts, and it's a case before me at the present time, so I don't know where the parents are. He's living with an uncle and an aunt. And the uncle's got papers from, I think, the state of Maryland stating that he's got custody of the child. But nobody really knows anything about the mother or father of this child.
If you suspect or know that the child is part of a gang, does that affect the response of the court?
The legislation that I've read that is before the Texas legislature today, if a person's a gang member and is adjudicated of the offense and he's found to be a gang member, if the child is sentenced to TYC, under normal circumstances, the child may be under his TYC policies there for 6 months and released. If he's adjudicated and found to be a gang member and there'd be a finding by the court, I believe the time in TYC is at least doubled. But that's the proposed legislation. The legislation is legislators in Austin are addressing that issue. Today, if it's gang related, at the disposition stage, we'd probably take into consideration there is a gang situation, and we have to decide what we're going to do with that child. Are we going to, we have a hard time putting him back in the same community that he came from, because if we do, he's going to be right back with his peers. We had a young man several months ago. He and a bunch of his friends were involved in a drive-by shooting, and someone said he was from Missouri City, and it was very close to Missouri City area. And the child, these kids' lucky night. First off, they didn't hurt anybody. They just blew some windows out of a house and tore some walls up. But the juvenile gang task force had been tailing these kids all evening. So they witnessed the shooting, and they chased them and caught them. And the one young man that I'm thinking of in particular came before my court, and he was an El Salvadorian youngster. His parents did not speak English. He wanted to go to school, but because of the gang pressures, he got involved in a gang, so his parents sent him to Canada. While he was in Canada, living with an aunt and uncle, I believe it was, they tried to enroll him in school, but in Canada, unless they had the right kind of papers, you couldn't go to school in Canada. So he stayed up, and he was there for like 6 months, not going to school, so he decided to come back home. And he was back with his parents, went back to school. The same gang pressure started working on him. And it was at that time he was involved in the drive-by shooting. He didn't want out of the juvenile detention facility because that had been the first safe haven that he had had in a long time. Because if he was released, he had all these people after him. And we went with each detention hearing. At the time each detention hearing would come up, he would waive his detention hearing, and his attorney would tell me his client's loving it in the detention center because it's the first time he's been able to go to school, I think, for 2 years. And finally, Mr. McAfee's department got the child assigned to a Job Corps program in Oklahoma City. And he's still there and doing very well in the Job Corps. He was just wanting an opportunity for an education, this particular child was. But if we would have sent him back into the community, he'd either gotten shot or he'd been back in trouble with his peers, and maybe in a year or so when he comes back from Job Corps, maybe his life had been turned around, and he will, and maybe we'll save the young man. I hope we have.
I wondered about that when I saw that lovely center, that if you've got runaways and street kids and people, if maybe that isn't a nice place to be. I don't know, do you have trouble, have to boot them back out on the street?
I was telling Dr. Hahn from a first-hand experience, that's not a nice place to be. When the building was under construction, I took a preacher friend of mine over to, because he'd been wanting to see the facility, and we went walking through unannounced, and it was on a Friday afternoon. Most of the workforce, the workmen had left, and the number 1 cell where they took the young man Anthony right off the bat after he changed his clothes, the preacher and I stepped in that cell to look around because there's a hole, the light comes from the ceiling in that cell, and I wanted to look and see if they got the steel bars put in that, and the preacher walked in behind me, and we heard a door go clunk, and we were there for about an hour and a half or 2 hours pounding and beating on the door before somebody found us. But I thought that I was going to get to spend the weekend with my good friend.
So you know what it feels like to be
exactly.
behind. It's not that cushy, huh? No. Not that plush.
It's not that plush. It may be better than what some of these kids have at home, but it's not that plush.
Karen?
Also on TV, there's been recently on not one of the major network stations, but one of the other ones is having a juvenile judge on TV. Have you watched that, and how similar to that is that to your experience?
Pretty similar. The judge that you're...
I mean, there's a real TV show?
Yeah. That judge is a former juvenile judge in Harris County and is now a Court of Appeals judge in Harris County. And it's it has a lot of similarities of what we all try to do with these kids.
Melanie?
I don't know if Officer McAfee is the one to ask or not, but if there is too many, if all the cells are filled, let's say the girls, if there's only 12, what happens if you get the 13th, 14th, or 15th girl in there and she needs to stay? Do you send her to another county, or what do you do?
You saw those cells, the first cells that they were shown, the intake cells. There's 6 or 8 of those, right, Dennis?
Hold your mic down there. Karen, show him what to do.
Dennis can tell you.
There's 8 of them. And when we built the facility, we based it on a study of where we may be by the year 2005. It's 56 beds, and we run about 30, 35 kids a day. If we get to the point that you're describing, then we would go or overflow to those 6 or 8 cells that you saw in the film that was shown. And we would probably have earlier indications before we get to that we're headed that way, and start looking again at what do we need to do to expand. And we've got room, we've got 5 acres there. We've got about 2 acres behind us that we could go ahead and just plan for before we get to that stage. Another wing for boys or another wing for girls, or whatever the figures may indicate.
Yeah, it looks like you've done a good job of advanced planning and thinking through your options. Okay, other questions? Karen?
Well, you're in my county, so I'm really interested in what's going on there. And also because I'm the mother of a teenage son, and I see a lot of his friends, and I hear their stories about things. So I'm really interested to hear the other side of a lot of this. And before I moved into the apartment complex I live in, my son was sort of horrified when I first said we were moving to, because he said he'd been told that it was gang territory, unquestionably. There were certain colors he shouldn't wear if we lived there. Well, I haven't really seen a whole lot of evidence of this since living there. I mean, it's actually been very peaceful, and nothing strange has happened, and nobody's come by to check on what color I'm wearing or anything. And so I guess I'm wondering, trying to get a fix on, and I'm wondering if you could tell by what's coming through your court how prevalent or not. I mean, I've heard stories as I was leaving the Meadows that were starting to feel encroached on, that there were groups starting to move in, and I didn't know, just how much of a problem or not it is in Fort Bend.
I think gangs are a problem in most communities in our area today. They're present, and we went through a couple years ago where the gangs were very active, very violent, and very destructive. They were addressed. The leadership of the gangs were arrested for various offenses, and their situation was addressed in the court system. We have not seen a series of real active gangs until recently. This last couple of weeks, I saw another series of kids come through. But it seems like to me that the active gang or the violent type gang activities, at least in our county, for some reason it has went down in the last year. I'm sure the gangs may be out there, but I think they've learned that if they want to maintain what they're doing, that they're going to have to cut down their criminal activity. Mr. McAfee may be seeing a different picture, but from the kids I'm seeing in my court, I do not see. I've not seen the gang activity that we saw a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Robert.
Would you be willing to disclose what parts of the county has most of the gang activity? I mean,
Where do we live?
I don't know if you would want to even say that, but I mean, do you think it's like at the northern part or southwestern part or?
The gangs are present in most areas of some level or another. The northern part of the county has had a certain amount of gang activity, as well as the Rosenberg-Richmond area. We've got a very active gang task force in the county that is composed of law enforcement officers selected from each of the major law enforcement groups of the county, and they're pretty well on top of what's going on. So while the problem's there, I feel that at least the law enforcement officials have a handle on it at this time.
That's a good, safe spot to stop. We're going to take an intermission here, change guests again. Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments and Mr. McAfee's, and we'll be back after intermission.